To understand the Golden Dawn, we must first understand the man who brought it into being, William Wynne Westcott. By profession, he was a coroner in London, a man who spent his days surrounded by death, performing examinations and signing official documents for the departed. But outside the cold halls of his work, Westcott lived a second life, one steeped in the mysteries of the unseen. He was not just a doctor of the dead, he was a seeker of the hidden. Westcott was deeply involved in esoteric societies. He was a high-ranking Freemason, fascinated by the layered symbolism of the Masonic tradition. But Freemasonry was not enough for him. Its rituals hinted at older secrets, older mysteries that had been stripped away over the centuries. Westcott wanted to go deeper, beyond allegory, beyond symbolism, into real magic. And when the Cipher Manuscripts fell into his hands, he believed he had found the missing link. According to Westcott's account, he deciphered the manuscripts and discovered not only rituals, but also instructions on how to form a magical order. The documents even included the name of a mysterious German adept, a woman known only as Anna Sprengel, who supposedly had the authority to grant him permission to create a new temple in England. Whether Sprengel was real or an invention is still debated to this day. Some scholars believe Westcott fabricated her entire existence to legitimize his society. Others insist she may have been part of a hidden European Rosicrucian network that preferred to remain in the shadows. What we do know is this: Westcott claimed to have written to Sprengel and received her blessing. Armed with that approval, he invited two trusted companions, Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers and William Robert Woodman, to join him. Together, they would become the founding fathers of the Golden Dawn. But make no mistake, it was Westcott who lit the spark. Without his curiosity, without his obsession, without his belief that the Cipher Manuscripts contained something real, the Golden Dawn may never have existed. For Westcott, this order was more than a pastime. It was a mission to bring hidden knowledge to life, to create a structured path through which ordinary men and women could rise into the mysteries of the ancients. And so, from the dusty pages of the Cipher Manuscripts and the restless ambition of one coroner, the Golden Dawn was born.
If Westcott was the mind behind the Golden Dawn, then Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers was its heart. Mathers was unlike anyone else in Victorian London, where most men of his time dressed plainly and lived within the rigid boundaries of society. Mathers lived as if he belonged to another age. He wore flamboyant robes, studied ancient languages, and spoke as though spirits and gods walked beside him. To his followers, he was not just a man, he was a living magician. Mathers had a gift for languages. He translated old magical texts that had been forgotten for centuries, manuscripts on Kabbalah, grimoires of ritual magic, and treatises on alchemy. He immersed himself in the lore of ancient Egypt, Greece, and the Hebrew mystics. To him, the past was not dead. It was alive, waiting to be revived through ceremony and ritual. This obsession made him the perfect architect for the Golden Dawn system. Where Westcott had found the framework in the Cipher Manuscripts, Mathers breathed life into them, turning coded instructions into living rituals. He designed elaborate ceremonies of initiation, filled with symbolic gestures, colored robes, and carefully chosen words of power. He gave the order its flavor, its mystique. Under his hand, the Golden Dawn became more than just a study group. It became a theater of the soul. Members did not simply read about mysticism, they lived it, acted it out, embodied it. Each initiation was an inner drama, a journey of death and rebirth, darkness and light. But Mathers was not merely a ritualist. He was also a visionary. He claimed to be in contact with higher beings, spiritual masters he called the secret chiefs. These beings, according to him, were the hidden rulers of the occult world, guiding humanity's spiritual evolution. Whether these secret chiefs were real entities, products of his imagination, or a clever tool to strengthen his authority, no one could ever say for certain. But one thing is clear: Mathers believed in them, and his belief gave him power. It was Mathers who transformed the Golden Dawn from an idea into a living order. His charisma attracted devoted followers, from poets and scholars to actors and mystics. Under his guidance, the Golden Dawn expanded quickly, its influence spreading across London and beyond. To some, he was a genius who revived ancient magic. To others, he was a dangerous eccentric, drunk on power and illusions. But love him or fear him, Mathers left his mark. Without him, the Golden Dawn would never have become the force it was destined to be.
The Golden Dawn is often remembered for the towering personalities of Westcott and Mathers, but there was a third man in its foundation, William Robert Woodman. Compared to the others, Woodman was quieter, less theatrical, and perhaps less remembered. But his presence gave the Golden Dawn something it desperately needed in its earliest days: credibility and stability. Woodman was a physician by trade, a man of science as well as of spirit. Like Westcott, he was a dedicated Freemason, and he had also been involved in the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, a society that blended Masonic tradition with mystical teachings. Within that circle, Woodman was highly respected, even serving as its supreme magus. This made him an authority in the world of esoteric fraternities long before the Golden Dawn was born. When Westcott approached him with the Cipher Manuscripts and the idea of creating a new order, Woodman brought both wisdom and legitimacy to the project. He was not the dreamer that Mathers was, nor the restless seeker that Westcott was. Instead, he acted as a grounding force, the elder figure who lent the order an air of maturity. His medical background also gave him a reputation of rationality, which helped balance out the more extravagant mystical claims of his companions. But Woodman's role was not merely symbolic. He contributed to shaping the early rituals, drawing on his Rosicrucian knowledge and Masonic experience. His understanding of structure, hierarchy, and symbolism helped mold the Golden Dawn system of grades, ensuring it had the appearance of continuity with older traditions. In other words, Woodman made the Golden Dawn look less like a novelty and more like a natural successor to centuries of hidden wisdom. Sadly, Woodman would not live to see the Golden Dawn flourish. He died in 1891, only a few years after the order was established, but by then the foundations had already been set. His name faded from the spotlight as Mathers and Westcott took center stage, but his quiet influence lived on in the DNA of the order. Without Woodman's gravitas and his Rosicrucian authority, the Golden Dawn may have been dismissed as just another eccentric experiment. Instead, it became a movement that drew in some of the brightest minds of its time. In the history of the Golden Dawn, William Robert Woodman is often overshadowed, but like the steady third pillar of a temple, his presence was essential. He may not have been the most flamboyant of the founders, but he helped make sure the order stood firm enough to grow, survive, and leave its mark on history.
In 1888, the dreams of Westcott, Mathers, and Woodman finally took physical form. What had been little more than coded manuscripts, private letters, and whispered plans became something real. A temple. They named it the Isis-Urania Temple, after the goddess of wisdom and the heavens. And with it, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn officially came into existence. On the surface, the Isis-Urania Temple looked no different from many other meeting places in Victorian London. It was discreet, hidden in plain sight so as not to draw suspicion from the outside world. But inside its walls, a transformation took place. Members entered in everyday clothing, but once the ceremonies began, they donned colored robes, stood before altars, and stepped into an atmosphere charged with symbolism and mystery. Every detail was deliberate. The arrangement of the furniture, the colors of the lamps, the geometric patterns traced on the floor. For initiates, it was as if the ordinary world had dissolved, replaced by a living theater of the sacred. The Isis-Urania temple followed the structure outlined in the Cipher Manuscripts, but elevated it to something far grander. The founders divided the order into grades, each corresponding to stages of spiritual growth. New members began as neophytes, learning the basics of symbolism, ritual, and meditation. As they advanced, they passed through elemental grades, each tied to earth, air, fire, or water, before reaching the higher mysteries. This path mirrored the journey of the soul, from material existence toward divine illumination. What set the Golden Dawn apart was its inclusivity, at least for its time. Unlike Freemasonry, which was restricted to men, the Golden Dawn welcomed women as equals. In fact, some of its most prominent and influential members were women, a decision that shocked traditionalists, but gave the order a wider reach and deeper creativity. The Isis-Urania temple became a meeting ground for poets, actors, intellectuals, and seekers of hidden truths, united by their hunger for the mysteries. In those early years, the temple thrived. The rituals dazzled new initiates, and the promise of hidden wisdom drew more and more members into its circle. At candlelight, under the watchful eyes of symbols drawn from Egyptian, Hebrew, and alchemical traditions, they invoked angels, traced pentagrams in the air, and sought communion with the unseen world. To the outside, it was a quiet society, tucked away in the bustle of London. But inside its chambers, the Isis-Urania temple was a portal, a doorway to the Golden Dawn.
The choice of a name is never accidental, especially for a secret society. When Westcott, Mathers, and Woodman founded their new order, they could have chosen something ordinary, the Society of Mystical Study, or the Brotherhood of the Occult. Instead, they called it the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It was not just a title, it was a statement of purpose. The phrase Golden Dawn symbolized light breaking through darkness, a new era of hidden knowledge rising above the shadows of ignorance. It was the image of spiritual illumination, the promise of wisdom that would shine on those who sought it. The founders saw their society as a new beginning, the dawn of a golden age of mysticism. To join the order was to leave behind the mundane world and step into the light of secret truths. The word Hermetic added another layer. It tied the order to the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary figure from ancient Egypt and Greece who was said to be both a magician and a philosopher. Hermeticism had long been considered a sacred stream of hidden wisdom, the key to alchemy, astrology, and magic. By invoking Hermes, the founders placed their order in a lineage of ancient knowledge, stretching back thousands of years. The Golden Dawn was not presenting itself as something new, but as a revival of timeless truths. There was also a deeper symbolic resonance. Dawn is the moment of transition, the point between night and day, darkness and light. In mystical thought, dawn represents awakening, the soul rising from the ignorance of material life into the awareness of the divine. To call themselves the Golden Dawn was to declare that their initiates would undergo this very transformation. Every ritual, every grade, every teaching was meant to guide a member from spiritual night into the radiant gold of enlightenment. But the name also carried an unspoken promise. In an age where science and rationalism were rapidly reshaping society, the Golden Dawn offered something different, a return to mystery, to wonder,
to the belief that not everything could be measured or explained. For its members, joining the Golden Dawn was like standing at the edge of a new sunrise. They were part of something grander than themselves, a movement that claimed to lead them out of darkness and into the light of the Golden Dawn.
The Golden Dawn did not emerge from a vacuum. Its founders were steeped in the traditions of Freemasonry, and the influence of the lodge can be seen in nearly every aspect of the order. In fact, the Golden Dawn might best be understood as a kind of spiritual offshoot, a Masonic child that grew into something far more mystical and theatrical. Freemasonry in Victorian England was powerful, respected, and widespread. It offered structure, ritual, and brotherhood, but it did not openly claim to teach magic. Yet its ceremonies were filled with symbolic gestures, allegories of life, death, and rebirth, and a hierarchy of degrees. To initiates hungry for deeper mysteries, Masonry hinted at secrets it never quite revealed. This was the gap Westcott and his companions sought to fill. The Golden Dawn would provide what Masonry only suggested: actual occult knowledge, practical magic, and a path to spiritual transformation. From Masonry, the Golden Dawn borrowed its system of ranks, but they reshaped it into a mystical ladder. Instead of simply advancing through degrees of fellowship, members of the Golden Dawn advanced through magical grades tied to the elements, the planets, and the Tree of Life. Each step was not just a promotion, it was a symbolic initiation into a higher state of being. The Golden Dawn also adopted the secrecy of Masonry. Members swore solemn oaths never to reveal the rituals, passwords, or teachings of the order. Breaking this vow was considered not just a betrayal of trust, but a spiritual crime punishable by dire consequences. Like the Masons, they met in temples hidden behind ordinary doors, their gatherings invisible to the public eye. But unlike the Masons, their ceremonies did not revolve around moral allegory. They revolved around summoning divine powers, invoking archangels, and transforming the self through ritual magic. Perhaps the greatest influence of Masonry was its sense of hierarchy and structure. The Golden Dawn was not a loose gathering of mystics. It was a carefully organized system with officers, grades, and defined roles for every participant. Every ceremony was scripted, every symbol had its place, and every initiate was guided step by step along a predetermined path. This discipline gave the order the strength to endure, at least in its early years, and made it feel like a continuation of a much older tradition. For many Victorians, joining the Golden Dawn felt both familiar and revolutionary. It carried the dignity of Freemasonry, but offered the thrill of real magic. It was as if the staid rituals of the lodge had suddenly burst into color and fire. The symbols of Masonry transformed into living forces. The Golden Dawn took the structure of Freemasonry and infused it with life, imagination, and mystery. And in doing so, it created something entirely new.
If Freemasonry gave the Golden Dawn its structure, Rosicrucianism gave it its soul. The Rosicrucians were the great mystery of the 17th century, an invisible brotherhood said to possess secret wisdom of the universe passed down from ancient times. Their manifestos promised hidden knowledge, spiritual transformation, and a coming age of enlightenment. Whether they were real or myth, the Rosicrucians inspired generations of seekers. And for the founders of the Golden Dawn, they were more than an influence, they were an ideal to be imitated. William Wynne Westcott and William Robert Woodman were already members of the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, an English Rosicrucian society tied to Freemasonry. They carried this heritage directly into the Golden Dawn. Many of the symbols, phrases, and philosophies were borrowed,
reimagined and given new life. The rose and the cross, the alchemical language of transformation, and the idea of secret adepts guiding humanity all flowed into the DNA of the Golden Dawn. Rosicrucianism taught that true wisdom was hidden in allegory and symbol revealed only to those prepared to see it. The Golden Dawn adopted this same principle. Every ritual was layered with hidden meanings. The colors of robes, the arrangement of candles, the very words spoken in ceremony, all were ciphers, keys that pointed to deeper truths. Just as the Rosicrucians once claimed to be invisible to the unworthy, the Golden Dawn wrapped its teachings in secrecy, unveiling them only grade by grade, initiation by initiation. But there was more. The Rosicrucian dream was one of harmony, a union of science, religion, and magic into a higher wisdom that could uplift humanity. In the late 19th century, when science seemed to be displacing faith and tradition, the Golden Dawn positioned itself as a continuation of that dream. To its members, they were not just dabbling in strange rituals. They were heirs to a great lineage of wisdom, carrying the Rosicrucian torch into a new age. The very ethos of the Golden Dawn, that hidden masters, secret chiefs, and spiritual adepts existed to guide human evolution, was drawn straight from Rosicrucian mythology. For members, this connection gave their work legitimacy, a sense that they were part of something vast, ancient, and sacred. The Rosicrucian rose bloomed once more in Victorian London, but this time it was crowned by the rising sun of the Golden Dawn.
Walk into a Golden Dawn temple during the height of its power, and you would feel as though you had stepped back into ancient Egypt. Statues of Isis and Osiris stood beside painted hieroglyphs. The Eye of Horus watched from banners, and initiates invoked names that had not been spoken aloud for thousands of years. The Golden Dawn's fascination with Egypt was not accidental. It was deliberate, and it gave the order its exotic, mystical character. Why Egypt? To the Victorians, ancient Egypt was the land of mystery, the cradle of lost wisdom. The pyramids, the Sphinx, the undeciphered hieroglyphs, all seemed to whisper of forgotten knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. Egypt had always held a special place in the Western imagination, seen as the birthplace of alchemy, astrology, and sacred magic. For the founders of the Golden Dawn, drawing on Egyptian symbolism gave their rituals an aura of antiquity and authority. By clothing their teachings in the imagery of Egypt, they suggested that their order was not new at all, but a revival of the oldest mysteries of humankind. Their ceremonies were filled with Egyptian gods: Isis, the mother of magic; Osiris, lord of death and resurrection; Horus, the hawk-headed god of kingship and power; Thoth, the scribe of the gods, keeper of divine wisdom. Each deity represented forces of nature and aspects of the human soul which initiates were taught to invoke and embody. In ritual, these gods became more than myth. They became living presences, called upon for protection, guidance, and transformation. But the Golden Dawn's Egypt was not the Egypt of historians or archaeologists. It was an imagined Egypt, a blend of ancient fragments, Hermetic writings, and 19th century occult speculation. They were not reconstructing Egyptian religion exactly as it was, but rather as they believed it must have been, a system of eternal truths hidden behind the ruins and hieroglyphs. To critics, this was romantic fantasy. To the initiates, it was sacred theater, a gateway to powers beyond the material world. In a society obsessed with the rational, scientific order of things, the Golden Dawn's Egypt provided a powerful escape, a vision of timeless wisdom, dazzling pageantry, and gods who still walked among mortals. The fascination with Egypt gave the order a sense of grandeur. It turned their dimly lit rooms in London into temples of eternity, where the son of Ra,
and the mysteries of Isis rose once more in the Golden Dawn.
From the very beginning, the Golden Dawn was wrapped in secrecy. Nothing about the order was meant for the eyes or ears of the outside world. Members were not free to talk about its rituals, its teachings, or even its membership. To step inside a Golden Dawn temple was to step into a world apart, and that world was protected by solemn oaths. When a new initiate joined, they did not simply walk into a classroom or lecture hall. They stood before an altar, beneath the watchful symbols of angels, gods, and elemental powers, and swore binding vows of silence. The words of these oaths were heavy with warning. They promised dire consequences should the initiate ever reveal the order's secrets. Some even invoked the threat of spiritual death, the idea that betraying the mysteries would cut the soul off from its higher path. Whether taken literally or symbolically, the message was clear. Silence was not just a rule, it was a sacred duty. The oath was not only about secrecy, it was about transformation. By swearing it, the initiates signaled that they were leaving behind the ordinary world and entering into a higher covenant. Their loyalty was no longer just to themselves. It was to the order, to their fellow initiates, and to the hidden powers the order claimed to serve. This sense of absolute commitment gave the Golden Dawn its strength. Its members believed they were guardians of a treasure too powerful for the unprepared and too sacred to be exposed to ridicule or misuse. Secrecy also served another purpose. It created allure. The Victorian public, already fascinated with spiritualism and occult societies, saw the Golden Dawn as an enigma. Rumors spread of strange ceremonies, shadowy figures in robes, and whispered invocations in forgotten languages. The more secretive the order appeared, the more curious outsiders became. For the members, this secrecy only heightened the sense that they were part of something elite, something dangerous, something that separated them from the mundane lives outside the temple doors. Yet secrecy would also be the Golden Dawn's downfall. For while it bound initiates together, it also bred suspicion, rivalry, and power struggles. When members began to break their vows, publishing rituals, revealing teachings, the order's foundation cracked. But in its earliest days, the oath of secrecy was ironclad. To break it was unthinkable. To keep it was to hold the key to the Golden Dawn itself, a world hidden in silence, guarded by fear, and bound by sacred promise.
At the heart of the Golden Dawn's teachings stood three great pillars of wisdom: Kabbalah, Astrology, and Alchemy. To the uninitiated, these might have seemed like separate systems, fragments of old traditions. But to the members of the Golden Dawn, they were interwoven paths, three languages that spoke of the same hidden truth. Kabbalah, the mystical tradition rooted in Jewish mysticism, formed the backbone of the order's spiritual map. The Tree of Life, with its 10 spheres and 22 connecting paths, became the guiding diagram for every initiate. It was not just a symbol, but a living map of the universe and of the human soul. Every grade in the Golden Dawn corresponded to a position on the tree. To ascend through the order was to climb the tree itself, moving closer and closer to divine unity. Through meditation, ritual, and study, members sought to unlock the secrets hidden in Hebrew letters, sacred names, and angelic hierarchies. For them, Kabbalah was not abstract theology. It was a practical key to understanding the cosmos. Astrology provided the second pillar. The Golden Dawn believed that the stars and planets were not distant bodies of gas and rock, but living forces that shaped the fabric of existence.
Every member learned to cast horoscopes, interpret planetary influences, and align rituals with celestial events. The zodiac became a circle of power, each sign carrying spiritual lessons and magical correspondences. To know astrology was to know how the heavens moved within the soul, and how the soul reflected the heavens. As above, so below. Alchemy, the third pillar, was often misunderstood by outsiders as mere attempts to turn lead into gold. But for the Golden Dawn, true alchemy was spiritual transformation, the purification of the self, the transmutation of the soul. Lead symbolized ignorance, base instincts, and material limitation. Gold represented illumination, spiritual mastery, and divine perfection. Rituals of the Golden Dawn were alchemical in nature. Every initiation was a death and rebirth, a refinement of the self, a turning of the base into the pure. These three pillars did not stand apart. They were intertwined, each supporting and completing the other. The Kabbalistic tree of life was mapped onto astrological symbols and alchemical processes. The planets corresponded to the spheres, the metals to the elements, the rituals to the great cosmic drama. The initiate who studied one path eventually found themselves walking all three, guided always by the promise that beyond them all was unity with the divine. In an age when science claimed to explain the universe through reason alone, the Golden Dawn insisted that the universe still spoke in symbols, in stars, in letters, in metals, in myths. To master the three pillars was to learn that language, and for the members of the Golden Dawn, that was the beginning of wisdom.
In the Golden Dawn, progress was not measured by time served, wealth, or influence. It was measured by initiation, by passing through a carefully constructed series of grades, each representing a stage of spiritual awakening. To climb the ladder of the order was to walk a symbolic path, one that mirrored the very structure of the cosmos. The outer order, known as the First Order, was where initiates began. Here, they were introduced to the foundations, symbolism, meditation, ritual, and theory. The grades were tied to the four classical elements: earth, air, water, and fire. Each grade was a purification, a trial of the soul against one of nature's forces. The neophyte, or beginner, stood outside the elements, learning to balance themselves before stepping into deeper mysteries. From there, the zealotor aligned with earth, grounding their being. The theoricus embodied air, learning the subtlety of intellect and breath. The practicus embodied water, diving into intuition and emotion. Finally, the philosophus embodied fire, facing the consuming force of will and desire. By passing through these stages, the initiate learned not only about the elements of nature, but the elements of their own psyche. Beyond this outer circle lay the second order, the true heart of the Golden Dawn. Here, initiates became adepti, workers of practical magic, scholars of hidden wisdom. They delved into deeper Kabbalistic mysteries, invoked angelic beings, and performed rituals of true magical power. These grades corresponded to the central pillars of the Tree of Life, symbolizing a closer relationship with the divine. It was in this order that the Golden Dawn's most famous figures, men like Aleister Crowley and W.B. Yeats, rose to prominence, practicing the rites that made the order legendary. But even beyond the adepts was a third circle, shrouded in mystery, the inner order, known only to a few. Here, the grades corresponded to the highest spheres of the Tree of Life: unity, divinity,
the crown itself. Whether the inner order was ever fully realized or remained more myth than reality is still debated. Some claim that only a handful ever touched these grades, and that the knowledge they contained was too profound or too dangerous to be widely shared. Each initiation was more than a ceremony. It was a drama of life, death, and rebirth. Blindfolds, symbolic weapons, sacred words, and ritual journeys through the temple taught the initiate not through lectures, but through experience. The initiate lived the mysteries. Every oath taken, every step forward was a step deeper into themselves and into the structure of the universe. To climb the grades of the Golden Dawn was to climb the rungs of the spiritual ladder, a ladder that stretched from earth to heaven, from the human to the divine. And for those who believed in its power, there could be no greater journey.
For the Golden Dawn, ritual was not pageantry, not theater for its own sake. Ritual was the heart of transformation, the living engine that carried initiates from the ordinary world into realms of higher power. Every gesture, every word spoken, every object placed in a temple had meaning. To an outsider, the ceremonies might have looked dramatic, even strange, but to those within, they were sacred acts designed to reshape the soul and bend reality itself. Ceremony in the Golden Dawn was carefully structured. The temple was arranged as a symbolic universe, the four quarters marked by elemental banners, the altar standing at the center as the axis of the world, the officers dressed in robes that represented divine powers. The Hierophant, clad in scarlet, embodied the guiding force of spirit. The Hieretus represented authority and judgment. The Hegemon acted as balance and mercy. Together, the officers created a ritual drama in which the initiate played the central role. Through ritual, abstract ideas became experience. When the initiate passed through darkness blindfolded, they were not just pretending, they were living the death of ignorance. When the blindfold was lifted and light filled their vision, it was the rebirth into illumination. When they held the elemental tools, the wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle, they were not props, but living symbols of will, intuition, reason, and material power. The ritual imprinted these lessons into the subconscious, embedding them deeper than study alone ever could. But ceremony was not only for initiation, it was also from magic itself. The Golden Dawn taught elaborate rituals for invoking angelic forces, banishing hostile energies, and attuning the self to cosmic currents. The famous Lesser Banishing ritual of the Pentagram, for example, became the daily practice of members, a way of cleansing their space, aligning themselves with divine light, and shielding against chaos. These ceremonies gave structure to spiritual practice, turning magic into a disciplined art. Ritual also served as a bond. When a group of initiates gathered in a temple, dressed in robes, moving in harmony, speaking sacred words together, they were no longer individuals. They were a single body, a vessel for something greater. The drama of the temple unified them, weaving their wills into a shared current of power. This was one of the Golden Dawn's greatest strengths, the ability to create an atmosphere where the invisible felt tangible, where the ordinary was transformed into the extraordinary. To the members, ritual was more real than the outside world. It was the key to awakening, the bridge between the human and the divine, the stage upon which the great mysteries of life and death were played out. Without ritual, there was no Golden Dawn. With it, the order became something unforgettable, a theater of the soul, a laboratory of magic, and, for many, the most profound experience of their lives.
Step into a Golden Dawn temple and you would see more than banners and robes. You would see tools, sacred instruments of power that were never to be treated as ordinary objects.
To outsiders, they may have looked like ritual props, but to initiates, they were living symbols, each one carrying the essence of universal forces. Without these tools, the ceremonies could not be performed, for they were the bridges between the magician and the unseen world. 4 tools stood at the center of Golden Dawn practice, each tied to one of the classical elements. The wand, associated with fire, symbolized will, power, and command. It was the tool of direction, the spark of intention that set magic in motion. The cup, tied to water, represented intuition, receptivity, and the mysteries of emotion. It was the vessel of inner knowledge, the mirror of the soul. The sword, bound to air, stood for reason, analysis, and discernment. It was the weapon that cut through illusion, the force of clarity and truth. And the pentacle, aligned with earth, symbolized stability, material manifestation, and grounding. It was the anchor of spirit into form, the seal of wholeness in the physical world. But these tools were more than elemental. Each was inscribed with sacred names, sigils, and colors corresponding to the Kabbalistic tree of life and astrological forces. When an initiate held the wand, they were not merely holding wood, they were channeling fire itself. When they raised the sword, they wielded the sharpness of intellect and divine justice. The tools were extensions of the magician's own being, forged not only by hand, but through ritual consecration which infused them with power. Beyond these 4, there were other sacred implements. The lotus wand, painted in bands of symbolic colors, embodied the whole tree of life and was used by officers to channel universal forces. The lamen, worn on the chest, was the badge of authority and identity within the temple. The altar, often black, stood as the axis of the world, the meeting point of heaven and earth. Even the robes themselves, with their colors and symbols, were considered magical garments that transformed the wearer into an archetype within the ritual drama. To the Golden Dawn, these tools were not optional. They were necessities, for they gave form to the invisible. The initiate learned that the universe spoke in symbols, and that by wielding these symbols, they could interact with the hidden forces of nature. The tools trained the mind, focused the will, and shaped the imagination into precise channels of power. Without them, the magician's inner world might wander. With them, the magician's inner world was sharpened like a blade. And so each tool became a part of the initiate themselves. To master the tools was to master the elements within. The wand was their will, the cup their heart, the sword their mind, and the pentacle their body. United, they formed a complete human being, one capable of walking the path of light. This was the essence of the Golden Dawn's teaching. The outer tools were only reflections of the inner tools, and true mastery lay in uniting the two.
The Golden Dawn Temple was not just a meeting hall, it was a universe in miniature, carefully constructed to mirror the hidden order of creation. Every symbol, every placement of furniture, every position of officer had purpose. To step inside was to step into a sacred cosmos, where the boundaries between the material and the spiritual dissolved. The temple was usually laid out in the form of a double-cubed room, a shape rich in symbolism, representing the balance between heaven and earth. The walls were often draped with elemental banners, yellow for air in the east, red for fire in the south, blue for water in the west, and black for earth in the north. These banners were more than decoration. They transformed the room into a living map of the universe. Each direction carried energy, each color aligned with forces of nature and spirit. At the very center stood the altar, a black cubical block, symbolizing the material world and the foundation of all spiritual work. Upon it rested lamps, incense, and sometimes the symbolic tools of the order. The altar was the axis mundi, the pivot between the seen and unseen worlds. Around it, the officers moved in prescribed patterns, enacting the drama of initiation and magic. The officers themselves occupied precise stations, each representing divine principles. The Hierophant, often robed in scarlet, presided from the east, the direction of light and rising sun, embodying spiritual illumination. Opposite stood the Hiereus, guardian of the west, representing judgment, strength, and protection. Between them was the Hegemon, mediator of mercy and balance, dressed in white. Other officers included the Charax, the herald who carried the lamp of guidance, and the Stolistus and Dadochus, who represented the cleansing forces of water and fire. Together, these figures turned the temple into a living organism, each role a vital part of the whole. Above the officers, invisible presences were also invoked. Archangels at the quarters, elemental kings, and divine names written in Hebrew and spoken in solemn tones. To the initiate, the temple was not merely filled with people, it was filled with powers, each called into being by ritual, each moving in harmony with the symbolic universe. The structure of the temple also mirrored the initiate's inner journey. Entering from the west, the candidates symbolically stepped out of darkness into light, moving toward the east, the seat of the Hierophant. Each ritual was staged as a journey through the temple, reflecting the soul's path through ignorance, struggle, balance, and finally, illumination. The very geometry of the room was a map of transformation. To outsiders, the temple may have appeared as an oddly decorated lodge, a curious blend of robes, lamps, and strange words. But to those within, it was a sacred cosmos, built not of stone and wood, but of symbols and meaning. Within its walls, the Golden Dawn believed they could touch the eternal, for the temple was not only a place, it was the universe itself, distilled into a chamber of light and shadow.
If there was one faculty the Golden Dawn prized above all others, it was the imagination. Not imagination in the sense of daydreaming or fantasy, but imagination as a creative force, the inner eye that could shape reality itself. For the Golden Dawn, the mind was not passive. It was active, powerful, and capable of bridging the material and the spiritual worlds. This was why visualization became central to their system of magic. Every ritual in the order relied on it. When an initiate traced a pentagram in the air with their dagger or wand, they were not simply gesturing, they were trained to see, vividly, a blazing blue figure of fire suspended in space. When they invoked an archangel, they were taught to imagine the being as real as if it were standing before them, immense, radiant, and alive. In meditation, they did not only think of symbols, they entered them, walking through them in their mind's eye as if stepping into another dimension. This use of imagination was not escapism, it was discipline. The Golden Dawn believed that the inner world was just as real as the outer, and that by training the imagination, the initiate could make the unseen visible and the invisible tangible. In their view, thought and vision were the first stages of creation. To imagine a thing with enough clarity and intensity was to lay the foundation for its manifestation in the physical world. Thus, visualization was not a game of the mind, it was magic itself. To develop this skill, initiates practiced elaborate visual exercises. They memorized the colors, symbols, and correspondences of the Kabbalistic tree of life, then learned to construct them mentally in vivid form. They practiced rising on the planes, a technique of projecting consciousness upward through astral realms, guided entirely by visualization. They built inner temples, populated with angels, gods, and powers, and trained themselves to navigate these spaces as if they were walking through an actual landscape. Modern psychology might call this guided imagery or active imagination, but to the Golden Dawn, it was more profound.
It was the key to unlocking hidden senses of the soul, to awakening faculties that ordinary perception ignored. By honing the imagination, the initiate prepared themselves to perceive what others could not. Subtle energies, astral beings, the architecture of the unseen universe. It was said that a weak imagination made a weak magician, while a strong imagination could move mountains. For in the Golden Dawn's world, the imagination was not just in the mind, it was the seed of creation itself. To master it was to gain access to the deepest mysteries of magic, where thought and vision became power.
The Golden Dawn did not invent its mystical vision out of thin air. Its roots stretched back centuries, deeply entwined with the legendary Rosicrucians, a secretive brotherhood said to possess hidden knowledge of the cosmos. While many dismissed the Rosicrucians as myth, their ideas left an indelible mark on Western esotericism, and the Golden Dawn carried that legacy forward with purpose and precision. Rosicrucianism emphasized the unity of science, philosophy, and magic. It taught that the universe was alive, a living organism governed by hidden laws, and that humans could access these laws through study, ritual, and spiritual discipline. These concepts became foundational pillars of the Golden Dawn. Its founders, already steeped in Rosicrucian tradition through organizations like the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, adopted not only the symbolic language of the rose and cross, but also the philosophy of inner transformation and moral discipline. The influence of the Rosicrucians is evident in the Golden Dawn's emphasis on secret knowledge transmitted through grades. Just as the Rosicrucians hinted at great wisdom hidden behind allegory, so too did the Golden Dawn conceal its higher mysteries from the uninitiated. Only through careful study, ritual practice, and personal development could a member ascend through the grades, unlocking deeper truths about the self, the universe, and the divine. Additionally, the Golden Dawn embraced the Rosicrucian concept of spiritual hierarchy, the idea that hidden masters or secret chiefs guided humanity from beyond ordinary perception. Westcott and Mathers claimed direct communication with these mysterious figures, drawing upon the Rosicrucian tradition of unseen mentorship. Whether these secret chiefs were literal entities, spiritual archetypes, or symbolic devices, their presence gave the order legitimacy and a sense of cosmic purpose. Rosicrucianism also shaped the order's approach to ethics and morality. The Golden Dawn was not simply about magic for power or curiosity, it was about the purification of the self. Initiates were instructed to cultivate discipline, restraint, and compassion, reflecting the Rosicrucian idea that spiritual power without moral grounding was dangerous. The ultimate goal was enlightenment, not fame, not wealth, not influence, but the awakening of the soul to its true potential. Through this fusion of Rosicrucian ideals and Victorian occult innovation, the Golden Dawn positioned itself as a bridge between the ancient and the modern. It claimed the authority of centuries of hidden knowledge while adapting it to the spiritual hunger of the 19th century. In doing so, it became more than a secret society. It became a living Rosicrucian dream, carried forward into a new age.
At the core of the Golden Dawn's mystical system was the Kabbalah, a centuries-old Jewish mystical tradition that sought to map the universe, the soul, and the divine. But the Golden Dawn did not study it as theologians might. They treated it as a living framework for spiritual transformation, a symbolic map of reality that could be navigated through ritual, meditation, and study. The centerpiece of the Kabbalah for the Golden Dawn was the Tree of Life,
a diagram of 10 spheres, or Sephiroth, connected by 22 paths. Each sphere represented a divine attribute, from Kether, the crown, symbolizing unity with the divine, to Malkuth, the kingdom, representing the material world. Each path carried symbolic meanings tied to letters, numbers, elements, and planets. By understanding and meditating on this structure, initiates could trace the flow of spiritual energy through the cosmos and through themselves. The Golden Dawn mapped its grades and rituals onto the Tree of Life. Initiates were guided through exercises that corresponded to particular spheres, climbing step by step towards spiritual mastery. The outer order corresponded to the lower Sephiroth, grounding the candidate, teaching control of mind and body, and familiarizing them with basic symbolism. The inner order corresponded to higher Sephiroth, where deeper mysteries were revealed, the nature of divine will, cosmic intelligence, and the path toward enlightenment. The Kabbalah also provided a language for magic. Hebrew letters, divine names, and numerical correspondences were not abstract trivia, they were tools. When an initiate traced a letter in ritual or meditated on a divine name, they were channeling the forces represented by that symbol. Every exercise was a bridge, connecting the initiate's consciousness with higher realms. But the Golden Dawn's use of Kabbalah was not mere scholarship. It was applied, practical, and experiential. Members were expected to internalize it, to live within its patterns, and to integrate its truths into their consciousness. It was a system that combined intellect with imagination, discipline with creativity, and ritual with contemplation. By mastering the Kabbalah, the initiate was not only understanding the universe, they were learning to navigate it. They could trace the flow of spiritual energy, align themselves with cosmic forces, and ultimately approach the divine directly. For the Golden Dawn, the Kabbalah was both map and compass, a tool to explore the inner and outer worlds, and a key to unlocking the mysteries of life itself.
In the Golden Dawn, the heavens were not distant or abstract. They were alive, active, and intimately connected to the human soul. Astrology was much more than star charts and horoscopes. It was a language of cosmic forces, a map of energies that shaped both the universe and the individual. For the Order, understanding astrology was essential to mastering magic itself. Every planet, star, and zodiac sign carried meaning. The sun represented the ego, will, and life force. The moon symbolized intuition, the subconscious and hidden potentials. Mercury guided intellect and communication. Venus governed desire and attraction, and so forth through Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Each planetary energy could be invoked, balanced, or harmonized through ritual, allowing the magician to align with the flow of the cosmos. The zodiac provided a framework for understanding the qualities of time and space. Every day, every hour, and every celestial event carried significance. The Golden Dawn taught that rituals performed under particular planetary alignments would resonate more strongly with the forces they sought to influence. Timing was not arbitrary, it was a form of cooperation with the rhythm of the universe. Astrological correspondences also extended to the tools, colors, and elements of the order. The wand might be linked to the sun, the cup to the moon. The sword could carry the sharp clarity of Mercury, while the pentacle grounded the stability of Saturn. Colors, incense, and symbolic gestures were all tied to planets and signs, creating layers of resonance that amplified the magical work.
In practice, an initiate might meditate on the qualities of Mars to build courage, invoke Venus to attract harmony, or study the moon to understand emotional currents. Astrology was both predictive and transformative, a way to read the tides of destiny and shape one's inner alignment with the cosmos. By integrating astrology into ritual, the Golden Dawn created a system in which every act of magic was embedded in the natural order of the universe. The stars, the planets, and the elements were not distant forces to be feared, they were partners, co-creators in the work of transformation. To understand astrology, then, was to understand one's place in the cosmos, a step closer to walking consciously between the earthly and the divine.
To many, alchemy conjures images of turning lead into gold, dusty laboratories, bubbling flasks, and mysterious chemicals. But for the Golden Dawn, alchemy was far deeper than metallurgy. It was the science and art of inner transformation, the method by which the magician transmuted the soul from base matter into spiritual gold. Every ritual, meditation, and exercise in the order had an alchemical dimension. The initiate was the raw material, imperfect and incomplete. Through study, discipline, and magical work, they underwent processes akin to the alchemical stages: calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. Each stage represented an internal shift, burning away ego and ignorance, dissolving attachments, separating light from shadow, and ultimately achieving spiritual integration. The elements themselves were tools in this process: fire purified, water cleansed, air illuminated, and earth grounded. The tools of the order, the wand, cup, sword, and pentacle, were instruments for guiding these alchemical operations, both symbolically and practically. By working with them in ritual, the initiate learned to channel and refine their inner energies. Symbols were the language of alchemy, and the Golden Dawn used them extensively. The rose, the cross, the serpent, and geometric forms represented stages of transformation. Color, sound, and gesture were all integrated, turning the temple into a laboratory of the soul. Visualization and imagination became the active agents of change, allowing the initiate to witness the transmutation of their inner nature. At the highest levels, alchemy was not simply personal transformation, it was union with divine principles, the realization that the human being was a microcosm reflecting the macrocosm of the universe. In this sense, the Golden Dawn's alchemy was sacred science, a practice in which the magician recreated the order of the cosmos within their own consciousness. To master alchemy within the Golden Dawn was to understand the secret of life itself, that transformation is always possible, that the base can become radiant, that the human soul can ascend to touch the divine. In every ritual, in every meditation, the initiate was both scientist and philosopher, alchemist and seeker, turning the lead of the ordinary self into the gold of spiritual illumination.
From its earliest days, the Golden Dawn claimed guidance from beings known as the Secret Chiefs. These were not ordinary mentors or human teachers. They were said to be highly advanced spiritual entities, existing beyond the material plane, who had perfected both magical skill and moral understanding. They communicated through visions, letters, and messages, guiding the founders and initiates toward higher wisdom. The Secret Chiefs were often described as ethereal, sometimes appearing in visions as luminous figures cloaked in white or gold. They were considered custodians of the ultimate mysteries, keepers of knowledge too dangerous or profound to be entrusted to ordinary people. Westcott claimed that he received instructions directly from these beings, which included the material found in the Cipher Manuscripts, the blueprint for the Golden Dawn's rituals and teachings. The influence of the secret chiefs was not purely mystical. Their presence provided legitimacy. If the order claimed to operate in alignment with unseen masters, it was no longer just a human invention. It was part of a greater spiritual hierarchy. This concept reinforced the Golden Dawn's hierarchical structure. Each grade, each ritual, each initiation was a step guided and overseen by forces beyond the ordinary. A cosmic chain of command linking human effort to divine authority. Members were encouraged to cultivate their own connection with the secret chiefs through meditation, astral projection, and magical work. Many reported visions, dreams, or intuitive insights, which they interpreted as guidance from these advanced beings. For some, this connection inspired awe and devotion. For others, it was a source of inspiration and moral direction, a reminder that magic was not merely a set of tricks, but a responsibility aligned with higher laws. Critics dismissed the secret chiefs as myth or invention, yet within the order they served a powerful function. They created a sense of accountability, mystery, and purpose. The order's teachings were elevated from mundane exercises to sacred duties, guided by intelligence and morality far beyond the human plane. To the initiates, the secret chiefs were both protectors and teachers, invisible architects of the Golden Dawn's hidden universe. Whether real or symbolic, the secret chiefs became a cornerstone of the Golden Dawn's philosophy that humans could reach higher states of consciousness, but only under guidance, discipline, and alignment with the forces of divine intelligence.
No history of the Golden Dawn would be complete without mentioning Aleister Crowley, perhaps its most notorious and controversial member. Crowley, a young poet and occultist with a reputation for scandal, joined the order in the early 1890s. His charisma, intelligence, and audacious personality made him both admired and feared within the society. Crowley was quickly recognized for his extraordinary magical talent. He advanced through the grades with remarkable speed, demonstrating skills in ritual, meditation, and astral work that impressed even the most seasoned adepts. Yet, his personality clashed with the discipline and hierarchy of the Golden Dawn. Crowley was provocative, challenging authority, and at times deliberately pushing the boundaries of accepted behavior. For some members, he was a genius. For others, he was a dangerous provocateur. His involvement coincided with growing tensions within the order. Rivalries between factions, disagreements over leadership, and disputes about secrecy were already straining the organization. Crowley's presence exacerbated these conflicts. He questioned rituals, challenged officers, and published accounts of magical practices that many believed should remain secret. To the traditionalists, Crowley represented both a threat to order and a temptation to explore uncharted spiritual territories. Despite controversy, Crowley's time in the Golden Dawn had a lasting impact. He absorbed much of the order's teachings, including Kabbalah, ceremonial magic, and alchemical symbolism, which would later become central to his own work in Thelema. His writings revealed not only a deep understanding of the Golden Dawn system, but also an inclination to push it further, experimenting with extremes of mystical experience, magical philosophy, and personal transformation. The story of Crowley in the Golden Dawn illustrates a tension at the heart of the order, the balance between discipline and freedom, secrecy and revelation, tradition and innovation. His brilliance was undeniable, but his unorthodox methods foreshadowed the fractures that would eventually lead to the order's decline. Crowley became both a symbol of the Golden Dawn's potential and a warning of the chaos that could arise when powerful individuals challenged the system's carefully maintained order. In the annals of occult history, Aleister Crowley remains a figure of fascination, and his Golden Dawn years are remembered as a turbulent, transformative, and ultimately defining chapter.
one that left a mark on both the order and the broader world of Western esotericism.
While Aleister Crowley brought controversy and intensity, it was S.L. MacGregor Mathers who shaped the Golden Dawn's identity and vision. Mathers, one of the original founders, was a scholar of languages, a student of occult texts, and a master of ceremonial magic. His meticulous approach to ritual, symbolism, and magical theory gave the order its structure and authority. Mathers was a commanding presence. He emphasized discipline, secrecy, and fidelity to the mystical lineage the Golden Dawn claimed to inherit. Under his leadership, the order expanded rapidly, attracting members from across London and beyond. Artists, writers, scholars, and those hungry for the hidden wisdom of the ages. Mathers' charisma was subtle but undeniable. He could inspire devotion, instill reverence for ritual, and enforce obedience without overt coercion. He was also deeply influenced by the Cipher Manuscripts, mysterious documents that outlined much of the Golden Dawn system. Mathers interpreted these writings as guidance from the secret chiefs themselves. Under his direction, the manuscripts were transformed into the structured rituals, grades, and magical correspondences that became the order's hallmark. Yet, Mathers' leadership was not without controversy. His strict enforcement of secrecy and hierarchy alienated some members. Disputes over authority, ritual interpretation, and personal rivalries led to tensions that eventually split the order. Mathers' reliance on communication with the secret chiefs, often through visions or letters, also drew skepticism. Some accused him of authoritarianism or of elevating mystical claims above practical concerns. Despite these challenges, Mathers' influence is undeniable. He codified the Golden Dawn's magical system, preserved its intricate symbolism, and ensured that its teachings were systematic and comprehensive. For students of Western esotericism, Mathers represents both the brilliance and the fragility of the Golden Dawn, a visionary leader who created a magical universe, yet whose human flaws contributed to its eventual fragmentation. In the history of the order, S.L. MacGregor Mathers stands as the architect of its glory and the central figure in its most tumultuous moments, a man whose devotion to hidden wisdom shaped generations of occultists, both within and beyond the Golden Dawn.
Though much of the Golden Dawn's early leadership was dominated by men, women played a vital and often underappreciated role. One of the most prominent figures was Florence Farr, a remarkable woman who became one of the order's key leaders and teachers. Farr was a trained actress, scholar, and mystic, and she brought both intellect and charisma to the organization. Farr joined the Golden Dawn at a time when women's participation in such secret societies was still unusual, yet she quickly proved herself to be a powerful force within the order. She rose through the grades, taught initiates, and even presided over rituals in the absence of male officers. Her influence extended beyond the ceremonial. She was instrumental in encouraging women to explore the inner dimensions of magic, meditation, and spiritual practice, showing that the pursuit of hidden knowledge was not limited by gender. The Golden Dawn was notable for being relatively progressive in its inclusion of women. Unlike many contemporary organizations, it allowed them full participation in initiation, ritual, and leadership. This inclusion reflected a deeper mystical philosophy, the balance of masculine and feminine principles within the magical universe. Men and women were not simply members, they were archetypes, representing complementary forces essential to the harmony of ritual and cosmic work. Farr also contributed intellectually to the order. She studied Kabbalah,
astrology, and ritual magic alongside her male peers and helped interpret complex texts for the broader membership. Her writings, lectures, and guidance left a lasting impression on both the practical and theoretical dimensions of Golden Dawn magic. Yet her presence was not without tension. Some male members resisted female leadership, and the dynamics of personality, rivalry, and ambition sometimes led to conflict. Still, Florence Farr's role proved that women could wield spiritual and magical authority, and she remains one of the most celebrated figures in the history of the Golden Dawn. Through Florence Farr and other women initiates, the order demonstrated that spiritual power was not a monopoly of men, but a shared pursuit, a vital component of the Golden Dawn's vision of balance, wisdom, and the transformation of the human soul.
To witness a Golden Dawn ceremony was to witness a drama of the cosmos itself. The order's rituals were meticulously staged, blending symbolism, movement, and spoken word to create experiences that were both transformative and theatrical. But this was no mere performance for entertainment. The drama of ritual was central to the order's magical practice. Every gesture, every chant, every robe color had meaning. The initiates moved through the temple in precise patterns, enacting cosmic principles as if they were characters in a sacred play. The altar, the tools, the banners, each element contributed to a living tableau that mirrored the structure of the universe. In these ceremonies, the initiate was both actor and audience, participant and observer, engaging the mind, body, and spirit simultaneously. The theatricality served a deeper purpose. It engaged the imagination, focused attention, and aligned the initiate with unseen forces. By embodying archetypes, the magician, the divine, the elemental powers, members were transformed from ordinary individuals into vessels for cosmic energy. Every initiation was a narrative of death and rebirth, struggle and triumph, ignorance and illumination. The drama was not illusion. It was a method for internalizing profound truths. Symbols from the Egyptian, Rosicrucian, and Kabbalistic traditions were woven into every ritual. The stage became a microcosm of the cosmos, where fire and water, earth and air, light and darkness, life and death were enacted as tangible experiences. Music, chanting, and movement amplified the effect, creating an atmosphere in which ordinary perception gave way to mystical insight. This theatrical aspect also reinforced hierarchy and discipline. Officers played roles that embodied spiritual principles, guiding the initiate through symbolic trials. The narrative of the ritual was carefully controlled to convey lessons at each stage, ensuring that each member's journey aligned with the philosophical and magical objectives of the order. In the Golden Dawn, ritual drama was more than performance. It was a tool of transformation, a language of symbols, and a bridge to higher realities. Through it, members experienced the invisible, felt the forces of the universe, and moved step by step toward the ultimate goal of spiritual illumination.
At the foundation of the Golden Dawn system of magic were the Cipher Manuscripts, a collection of mysterious documents that arrived in the hands of William Wynne Westcott in the late 19th century. These manuscripts were written in cipher, encoded in a complex substitution system, and contained the rituals, grades, and teachings that would form the backbone of the order. But their origins remain a riddle, wrapped in secrecy and speculation. The manuscripts were said to have been discovered through Westcott's correspondence with a German Rosicrucian. They contained instructions for rituals, magical theory, and esoteric philosophy, all meticulously organized. Yet their provenance was unclear.
Some claimed they were the work of an unknown adept sent through time to guide initiates. Others believed they were a Victorian creation, a clever blend of older mystical traditions woven into a new system. Regardless of their origin, they became the blueprint for the Golden Dawn. Deciphering the manuscripts required effort and dedication. Westcott, along with William Robert Woodman and Samuel Little Mathers, translated and interpreted the texts, filling in gaps where necessary and adapting the teachings to create a coherent system. The manuscripts spoke in allegory, using symbolic language drawn from Kabbalah, Hermeticism, Rosicrucianism, and Egyptian lore. Every word was layered with hidden meanings, requiring careful study to grasp the full scope of the wisdom contained within. The Cipher Manuscripts were more than historical documents. They were seen as a direct channel to the secret chiefs, a coded message from advanced spiritual intelligences. Following their instructions was a form of obedience to a higher authority, aligning the order with forces beyond the human plane. They established the grades, the rituals, and the magical correspondences that defined the Golden Dawn's practice. Even today, the manuscripts are shrouded in intrigue. Were they authentic transmissions from a hidden mystical lineage, or ingenious creations of Victorian occultists? The answer may be unknowable. Yet their impact is undeniable. They gave birth to one of the most influential magical orders in history, shaping the practices, philosophy, and imagination of generations of Western esotericists. In the end, the Cipher Manuscripts remain a symbol of the Golden Dawn itself, mysterious, encoded, and potent. A key to hidden knowledge that continues to fascinate, challenge, and inspire those who seek the secrets of the unseen world.
Despite its brilliance and influence, the Golden Dawn was not destined to remain unified. Internal conflicts, personality clashes, and disputes over authority gradually eroded the order's cohesion, leading to a series of schisms that fragmented the once powerful organization. One of the most significant sources of tension was leadership. Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, though brilliant, was often seen as authoritarian. His insistence on strict adherence to ritual, his reliance on communication with the secret chiefs, and his sometimes aloof demeanor created resentment among members. When disputes arose, particularly regarding interpretation of rituals and magical authority, factions began to form. The presence of strong personalities like Aleister Crowley further intensified these divisions. Crowley's rapid ascent, provocative behavior, and eventual publication of secret rituals alarmed traditionalists. Conflicts over secrecy, legitimacy, and the correct practice of magic erupted, and the bonds that once unified the order began to fray. By the early 20th century, the Golden Dawn had splintered into several rival groups, each claiming to preserve the true teachings of the original order. Some continued under Mather's guidance, others formed independent lodges. Disagreements over ritual, hierarchy, and authority persisted, diluting the unity and focus that had made the order so powerful. What had once been a single, cohesive network of initiates became a collection of loosely affiliated groups, each interpreting the teachings in its own way. External pressures also played a role. The secrecy and eccentricity of the order attracted both fascination and scrutiny. Public scandals, personal rivalries, and controversies, sometimes amplified by press coverage or sensationalized accounts, undermined the order's credibility. Financial difficulties and the natural challenges of maintaining a secret society in the modern world compounded the problems. Yet even in decline, the Golden Dawn's influence endured. Its teachings, rituals, and symbolism were preserved, adapted, and transmitted through its splinter groups.
Former members carried the knowledge into new movements, influencing figures such as Dion Fortune, Aleister Crowley, Israel Regardie, and countless modern practitioners of Western occultism. The decline of the Golden Dawn illustrates a paradox common in secret societies. Immense creative energy and profound insight often exist alongside fragile human dynamics. Brilliant systems of knowledge can be undone by ego, rivalry, and misunderstanding. And yet, the legacy of the Golden Dawn continues to inspire seekers of hidden wisdom, demonstrating that even in fragmentation, the light of its teachings endures.
Even after its fragmentation, the Golden Dawn left an indelible mark on modern Western esotericism. Its rituals, teachings, and symbolic system became the foundation for countless occult movements, magical orders, and spiritual practices that followed. One of its most enduring contributions was the codification of ceremonial magic. By systematizing ritual, grades, and correspondences, the Golden Dawn provided a template for structured magical practice. Later occultists, including Aleister Crowley's Thelema, Dion Fortune's Society of the Inner Light, and many contemporary ceremonial orders, drew directly from its techniques, adapting and expanding them while preserving the core symbolic framework. The order's emphasis on the Kabbalah, Astrology, Alchemy, and the three pillars created a unified system that allowed practitioners to integrate diverse mystical traditions. The idea that magic could be both a personal and spiritual discipline, combining intellect, imagination, and ritual, became a hallmark of Western occultism. The Golden Dawn taught that transformation required both knowledge and experience, theory and practice. Its symbolic and ritual innovations also influenced the arts, literature, and culture. Writers like W.B. Yeats and Arthur Machen were inspired by its teachings, incorporating mystical themes into their works. The visual and theatrical elements of the order, robes, temples, and ceremonial gestures, have echoed in modern ritual magic, theater, and even popular media depictions of the occult. Crucially, the Golden Dawn emphasized personal responsibility and ethical discipline alongside magical power. Members were instructed to cultivate balance, moral awareness, and self-knowledge, reinforcing the idea that spiritual attainment is inseparable from ethical development. This integration of morality and magic has influenced modern practitioners who seek not only supernatural ability, but inner growth and transformation. In essence, the Golden Dawn became the blueprint for modern Western esoteric practice. Its ideas continue to resonate, its rituals are still studied and performed, and its influence can be traced through a lineage of magical thought that stretches from Victorian London to contemporary spiritual communities around the world. The order may have fragmented, but its legacy is timeless, a hidden current flowing beneath the surface of modern occultism, shaping seekers and scholars alike.
Even more than a century after its founding, the Golden Dawn remains wrapped in mystery. Despite extensive scholarship and the publication of many of its rituals, certain aspects of the order are still unknown, secrets that may never be fully revealed. The Cipher Manuscripts, while largely deciphered, still hold ambiguities. Some passages are enigmatic, hinting at practices or knowledge that were never fully explained. Scholars and practitioners debate whether these gaps were intentional, leaving room for intuition and personal discovery, or whether they concealed even deeper mysteries known only to the secret chiefs. The secret chiefs themselves remain a profound enigma. Were they actual spiritual entities, symbolic archetypes, or visionary constructs designed to inspire discipline and obedience. Their existence cannot be verified, yet their influence is undeniable, guiding the order's structure and the evolution of its teachings. Many rituals are also shrouded in secrecy. While some have been published, others were orally transmitted or selectively shared among initiates. Questions remain about the higher-grade ceremonies and whether their full effects, metaphysical, spiritual, or magical, were ever truly understood by those outside the inner order. Additionally, the personal lives and experiences of key members continue to intrigue historians. What visions did they witness during astral projection? What mystical experiences transformed them? How much of their knowledge was symbolic versus experiential? These questions add layers of mystery to the Golden Dawn's already complex history. Finally, the Order's legacy is itself a puzzle. The Golden Dawn fragmented, yet its influence persists in countless modern esoteric and magical systems. How did a Victorian secret society achieve such enduring impact? How much of its original wisdom has been preserved, and how much remains hidden in the imagination of those who continue to study it? The Golden Dawn, for all its meticulous structure, disciplined practice, and historical documentation, retains an aura of the unknown. Its mysteries continue to challenge scholars, intrigue occultists, and inspire seekers, proving that some secrets, especially those of the soul and the cosmos, are never fully revealed, only approached.
For modern seekers, the Golden Dawn can feel like both a treasure trove and a labyrinth. Its rituals, symbolism, and teachings are complex, layered, and sometimes obscure. Yet, approaching them thoughtfully can offer profound insights into the nature of the self, the universe, and the art of transformation. The first principle is study. The Golden Dawn combined elements from Kabbalah, Alchemy, Astrology, Hermeticism, and Rosicrucian thought. Understanding these frameworks is essential. Modern practitioners often start with the Tree of Life, exploring its Sephiroth and paths, or with the correspondences of the elements, planets, and symbols. Books, translated manuscripts, and scholarly analyses provide a starting point, but study alone is not enough. Second is practice. The Golden Dawn emphasized experiential learning through meditation, visualization, and ritual. Even if one does not have access to a formal lodge, practicing symbolic exercises can help develop focus, imagination, and inner awareness. Daily practices like the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram are a way to cultivate discipline and attune oneself to higher energies. Third is ethical alignment. The Order taught that power must be tempered with responsibility. Modern seekers should approach these teachings with respect for the self and others, integrating insights into personal growth rather than seeking mere power or spectacle. The Golden Dawn was as much about moral and spiritual development as it was about magic. Fourth is adaptation. The Golden Dawn was a system designed for its time, yet its principles can be applied today in ways that resonate with contemporary life. Symbolism, meditation, and ritual can be adapted to personal circumstances while still preserving the essence of inner transformation. Finally, patience and humility are key. The Golden Dawn's teachings are profound and layered. Progress comes gradually through consistent effort, reflection, and disciplined practice. One does not master the Golden Dawn quickly. One experiences it step by step, grade by grade, insight by insight. To approach the Golden Dawn today is to enter a journey, a path of self-discovery, inner alchemy, and cosmic connection.
Its teachings continue to illuminate the minds of those who are willing to study, practice, and open themselves to the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of ordinary perception. In this way, the Golden Dawn remains alive, not as a historical artifact, but as a living guide for the seeker of hidden wisdom.
Meditation in the Golden Dawn was not merely a moment of quiet reflection. It was a disciplined practice designed to train the mind, awaken hidden faculties, and prepare the initiate for magical work. The order believed that a focused mind could perceive unseen forces, connect with higher planes of existence, and navigate the symbolic universe of the Kabbalah and ritual. One of the foundational techniques was the use of guided visualization. Initiates were instructed to picture the tree of life, the elements, and divine symbols in vivid detail, imagining themselves interacting with these forces. This practice sharpened the imagination, strengthened concentration, and cultivated a sense of inner presence that was essential for ritual efficacy. Another key aspect of meditation was the attunement to inner energies. Through breath control, visualization, and symbolic focus, members learned to sense and manipulate subtle energies within their bodies. This internal awareness allowed them to align with elemental forces, channel spiritual power through ritual tools, and maintain balance while performing complex ceremonies. Meditation was also a path to self-knowledge. The Golden Dawn taught that understanding oneself, strengths, weaknesses, and hidden desires was essential for mastery of magic. By observing the mind and its patterns during meditation, initiates could confront their limitations, integrate shadow aspects, and cultivate clarity of purpose. Importantly, meditation was not isolated from ritual. It was preparation for it and reflection after it. A meditative practice before a ceremony primed the mind and spirit, while meditation afterward helped internalize the lessons, stabilize the energies, and deepen insight. For the modern seeker, meditation remains a powerful tool inspired by Golden Dawn practices. Even without formal ritual, visualization, focus, and attunement exercises can cultivate inner awareness, discipline, and connection to the larger patterns of life. In this sense, meditation was and remains a cornerstone of the Golden Dawn's approach to spiritual and magical development.
Among the most famous and widely practiced rituals of the Golden Dawn is the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, commonly known as the LBRP. It is considered a foundational exercise, essential for clearing the mind, establishing spiritual protection, and preparing the initiate for deeper magical work. The ritual begins with centering the practitioner, aligning their consciousness with the divine and the cosmic order. It involves tracing pentagrams in the 4 cardinal directions, each associated with an element – earth, air, fire, and water. While the gestures may appear simple, they are loaded with symbolic meaning. Each pentagram represents the invocation or banishment of elemental energies, establishing balance and control. As the pentagrams are traced, divine names are spoken aloud. These names are not arbitrary. They are believed to carry the vibrational essence of universal forces. Uttering them with focus and intent strengthens the practitioner's connection to higher planes, while simultaneously purifying the immediate environment. The LBRP also includes the invocation of archangels at the 4 quarters – Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Uriel. This step creates a sacred boundary of protection, aligning the magician with the forces of cosmic order. The ritual is both defensive and preparatory. It banishes negative influences while calling in positive energies. Beyond its protective function, the LBRP is a training tool. Regular practice develops concentration, visualization skills, and an understanding of symbolic correspondences. It conditions the mind and spirit, creating a stable foundation for more advanced rituals and meditative exercises. To modern practitioners,
the LBRP remains a central exercise. Its simplicity belies its power, and its structure can be adapted for personal spiritual growth. The ritual embodies the Golden Dawn's philosophy that magic is rooted in disciplined practice, symbolic understanding, and the conscious alignment of mind, body, and spirit. Mastery of this ritual is often the first step in walking the path of the Golden Dawn, opening the door to the deeper mysteries that lie ahead.
Within the Golden Dawn, not all magic was mundane or preparatory. High magic, sometimes called ceremonial magic, represented the pinnacle of the order's mystical practice. This was the domain where symbols, ritual, imagination, and divine correspondences combined to produce profound spiritual transformation and, according to the order, influence the unseen forces of the universe. High magic involved complex rituals that required preparation, concentration, and mastery of the tools, symbols, and meditative techniques taught in the lower grades. These rituals often included invocations of angels, archangels, and divine names, along with elaborate visualizations of cosmic structures, such as the Tree of Life. Each movement, each spoken word, carried layers of symbolic meaning intended to align the magician with higher powers. The purpose of high magic was not mere material gain. While folklore often emphasizes magical effects, the Golden Dawn insisted that the true goal was inner transformation. The rituals were designed to purify the mind, awaken hidden faculties, and create a harmonious relationship between the practitioner and cosmic forces. Success was measured not in worldly outcomes, but in the initiate's spiritual and magical development. High magic also integrated alchemical principles, combining imagination, willpower, and ethical awareness. The practitioner sought to transmute base desires and unconscious tendencies into conscious, directed power. The tools of the order, wand, cup, sword, and pentacle, were employed not only as symbolic instruments, but as channels for the practitioner's intention, focusing energy and consciousness into precise forms. Because of its complexity, high magic was reserved for those who had proven themselves in the lower grades, demonstrating discipline, understanding of correspondences, and a commitment to the ethical principles of the order. It was a path of mastery, demanding patience, focus, and dedication. In essence, high magic in the Golden Dawn represents the apex of Western ceremonial tradition, a disciplined, symbolic, and transformative system that trains the practitioner to interact consciously with the unseen, aligning personal development with the forces of the universe. It is the culmination of study, practice, and spiritual insight, the embodiment of the order's deepest teachings. Beyond the outer order, open to a broader membership, lay the inner order of the Golden Dawn, a secretive circle reserved for the most advanced initiates. This inner sanctum was where the deepest teachings, rituals, and mystical practices were preserved, often inaccessible to casual members or outsiders. The inner order focused on higher-grade knowledge, including the most intricate aspects of Kabbalah, ceremonial magic, and astral work. Its rituals were longer, more complex, and carried greater symbolic weight. Initiates engaged in exercises that demanded absolute discipline, advanced visualization, and a refined understanding of cosmic correspondences. Membership in the inner order was selective. Candidates were carefully evaluated based on their moral character, magical aptitude, and ability to integrate earlier teachings. This exclusivity ensured that the profound knowledge contained within would not be misused or diluted. The inner order also maintained direct communication, or at least claimed to, with the secret chiefs. These higher beings were said to provide guidance,
corrections and advanced instruction to the inner circle. Whether literal or symbolic, this connection reinforced the sense of working within a cosmic hierarchy and underscored the serious responsibility of advanced magical work. Rituals in the inner order often included intense forms of meditation, astral projection, and invocation of divine forces. They were designed to expand consciousness, reveal hidden truths, and facilitate the direct experience of higher realities. Initiates were trained to navigate the subtle realms safely, integrating insights into both spiritual and practical life. The inner order represents the Golden Dawn at its most esoteric and transformative. While the outer grades introduced members to ritual, symbolism, and magical theory, the inner order offered a path to personal and cosmic mastery, a journey into the depths of the unseen world, guided by discipline, knowledge, and the pursuit of ultimate truth.
One of the most fascinating aspects of the Golden Dawn's practice was astral travel, the ability to project consciousness beyond the physical body into other realms of existence. This was not fantasy. It was considered a disciplined skill developed through meditation, visualization, and ritual. Initiates were trained to navigate the astral plane, a subtle dimension where symbolic, spiritual, and energetic realities could be perceived directly. Exercises began with grounding and centering, followed by visualization of the self separating from the physical body. The practitioner then moved consciously through symbolic spaces, often guided by divine forces, angels, or archetypal symbols. Astral travel served multiple purposes. It allowed initiates to explore inner landscapes, encounter aspects of their own psyche, and gain insight into cosmic principles. Advanced practitioners could purportedly communicate with higher intelligences, access hidden knowledge, and influence energies in subtle ways. The Golden Dawn provided a structured framework to ensure safety and control. Visualization exercises, protective invocations, and banishing rituals like the LBRP were employed to safeguard the practitioner from negative influences. Discipline and ethical grounding were considered essential. Astral travel without preparation could lead to confusion, imbalance, or even spiritual harm. Techniques included guided journeys through the Tree of Life, exploration of elemental planes, and encounter with symbolic guardians or divine archetypes. These experiences were meant to cultivate inner wisdom, strengthen magical ability, and deepen the connection between the practitioner and the unseen cosmos.
Dreams held a special place in the Golden Dawn's mystical system. They were seen as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, a doorway to hidden knowledge, and a medium through which the initiate could receive guidance from higher forces. Members were taught to keep detailed dream journals, recording not only the events of their dreams, but also symbols, colors, numbers, and emotions. Every element was considered potentially significant, often corresponding to Kabbalistic, astrological, or alchemical principles. By analyzing dreams systematically, initiates could decode messages from the unconscious, uncover personal insights, or detect spiritual influences. Certain techniques were employed to enhance dream clarity and recall. Rituals before sleep, meditation, and focused intention could direct the mind toward lucid dreaming, where the practitioner maintained awareness within the dream state. This allowed for interaction with symbolic figures, angels, or archetypal forces, providing guidance, problem-solving, or instruction in magical techniques. Dreams were also used as tools for initiation. Some members reported receiving visions of their grade rituals, symbolic lessons, or personal trials while asleep. These nocturnal experiences complemented waking practice, reinforcing lessons learned in meditation, ritual, and study. Importantly, the Golden Dawn emphasized ethical interpretation. Dreams could reveal desires, fears and conflicts within the self, but initiates were guided to approach these visions with discernment, integrating lessons without being misled by fantasy or ego-driven illusions. For modern practitioners, dream work inspired by the Golden Dawn remains a powerful tool. By observing, recording, and interacting with dreams intentionally, one can gain insight into the inner world, develop intuition, and connect with subtle energies. Dreams in the Golden Dawn system were not mere entertainment. They were a vital part of the path to self-knowledge and spiritual awakening.
Symbols and sigils were the language of magic in the Golden Dawn. Every tool, gesture, and ritual contained layers of meaning, serving as a bridge between the conscious mind and the hidden forces of the universe. Mastery of symbolism was essential for effective magical work. Sigils, in particular, were used to focus intent and manifest specific energies. A sigil could represent a divine name, an angelic power, or a desired outcome. Through careful design, meditation, and ritual activation, the practitioner imbued the sigil with concentrated will, allowing it to act as a conduit for unseen forces. Symbols extended beyond sigils to include geometric forms, colors, planetary correspondences, and elemental emblems. The pentagram, hexagram, and rose cross were among the most important. Each carried profound meaning relating to balance, protection, or spiritual ascent. Colors were not decorative, but vibrational tools. Red for energy, blue for intuition, gold for divine illumination. These symbols were integrated into ritual drama, meditation, and magical tools. The wand, cup, sword, and pentacle were not mere props. They embodied elemental principles and served as extensions of the practitioner's consciousness. Through visualization and ritual, these symbols became active, channeling intention and aligning the magician with cosmic patterns. The Golden Dawn also emphasized personal engagement with symbols. Members were encouraged to create their own sigils and symbolic representations, internalizing their meanings through study, meditation, and repeated ritual use. This practice strengthened focus, amplified magical power, and deepened understanding of universal correspondences. In essence, the use of symbols and sigils transformed abstract concepts into experiential reality. They allowed the initiate to communicate with hidden forces, structure consciousness, and enact change in both the inner and outer world. For the Golden Dawn, symbols were not ornaments. They were living keys to the mysteries of existence, and mastery over them was a hallmark of magical advancement.
Egyptian mysticism played a central role in the Golden Dawn's symbolic and ritual framework. The order drew heavily from ancient Egyptian mythology, temple practices, and magical texts, seeing in them a profound connection to universal truths and the mysteries of life, death, and the soul. Symbols such as the scarab, the ankh, the lotus, and the Ouroboros were incorporated into rituals, representing transformation, eternal life, spiritual awakening, and the cyclical nature of existence. Deities like Isis, Osiris, and Horus were invoked, not as literal gods, but as archetypal forces embodying wisdom, regeneration, and divine power. The Egyptian influence extended to ceremonial design. The structure of the temple, the placement of altars, and even the gestures used in ritual were inspired by depictions of ancient temple rites. Initiates were taught to visualize themselves as part of a cosmic drama that mirrored the cycles of Egyptian mythology, from death and rebirth to the attainment of divine wisdom. Egyptian magic in the Golden Dawn was also intertwined with Kabbalah.
The order saw correspondences between Egyptian symbols and the Tree of Life, integrating the wisdom of multiple traditions into a unified system. This synthesis allowed initiates to explore spiritual truths through layered symbolism, connecting the past, present, and future in their magical work. Furthermore, Egyptian mystical practices reinforced the ethical and spiritual discipline of the order. They were not merely exotic or decorative. They provided a narrative framework that guided initiates toward self-knowledge, moral development, and cosmic alignment. By studying and enacting Egyptian mysticism, Golden Dawn members gained access to a symbolic universe that bridged human consciousness and divine principles. The ancient imagery was a tool, a language, and a mirror, reflecting both the mysteries of the cosmos and the hidden potentials within the initiate's own soul.
Initiation in the Golden Dawn was a transformative journey designed to lead the aspirant from ignorance to spiritual awareness and ultimately to mastery over mind, body, and soul. The order structured this journey through a carefully graded system, each level offering new knowledge, challenges, and opportunities for inner growth. The outer order consisted of the first few grades, focusing on discipline, meditation, and the fundamentals of ritual and symbolism. Initiates learned to control their mind, develop concentration, and understand the basic correspondences of the elements, planets, and Kabbalah. Early lessons emphasized self-knowledge, ethical conduct, and the responsible use of power. As initiates advanced, they entered the inner order, where teachings became more esoteric and rituals more complex. Each grade corresponded to a sephirah on the Tree of Life, symbolically guiding the practitioner up the ladder of spiritual ascent. These stages involved deeper study of Kabbalah, astral travel, high ritual, and direct engagement with archetypal forces. Initiation ceremonies were highly symbolic. They often included purification, the use of ritual tools, invocations of divine names, and guided visualization of cosmic principles. Each ritual was designed to create a profound psychological and spiritual effect, leaving the initiate with a sense of transformation and alignment with higher realities. The journey through the grades was not linear or merely academic. It required consistent practice, moral discipline, and inner reflection. Progress was measured not by external recognition, but by the initiate's ability to embody the teachings, maintain balance, and integrate symbolic and mystical insights into daily life. Ultimately, initiation in the Golden Dawn was about awakening potential. It provided a structured path for self-discovery, spiritual empowerment, and alignment with the cosmic order.
In the Golden Dawn, ritual tools were far more than symbolic props. They were extensions of the practitioner's will, instruments for channeling energy, and keys to cosmic correspondences. Each tool embodied elemental, planetary, and spiritual principles, creating a tangible link between the initiate and the unseen forces of the universe. The wand represented fire, will, energy, and spiritual initiative. It was used to direct power, invoke forces, and focus intention during ceremonial work. The sword symbolized air, intellect, clarity, and discernment. It cut through illusion and defined boundaries, both psychic and symbolic. The cup corresponded to water, emotion, intuition, and receptivity. It contained and directed subtle energies, enabling the practitioner to interact with inner and outer forces fluidly. The pentacle represented earth, stability, manifestation, and grounding.
It connected the practitioner to the material world and to the elemental forces that sustain life. Beyond the classical 4 tools, additional items like the dagger, bell, incense, and altar symbols were integrated into rituals. Each carried correspondences to planets, zodiac signs, colors, and divine names. The precise use of these tools amplified ritual effectiveness, creating a coherent system in which action, symbol, and intention aligned perfectly. The Golden Dawn also emphasized proper handling of tools. They were treated with reverence, cleansed regularly, and used according to ritual protocol. This discipline ensured that the tools acted as channels for energy rather than mere ornaments. For modern practitioners, understanding the correspondences of ritual tools is essential. It allows one to interact consciously with symbolic and elemental forces, bridging the gap between inner intention and outer effect. In the Golden Dawn, mastery of the tools was synonymous with mastery over oneself, an essential step on the path of spiritual and magical development.
Color in the Golden Dawn was not merely aesthetic, it was a language of vibration and correspondences. Every hue carried energetic qualities, emotional resonance, and spiritual significance. Understanding color symbolism was essential for ritual work, meditation, and personal transformation. For example, red was associated with fire, energy, courage, and willpower. Blue represented water, intuition, serenity, and divine receptivity. Yellow symbolized air, intellect, clarity, and communication. Green corresponded to earth, growth, stability, and healing. Gold signified divine illumination, spiritual attainment, and the highest levels of consciousness. Colors were integrated into robes, ritual tools, temple decorations, and visualizations. Each color was carefully chosen to harmonize with the elemental and planetary correspondences of a ritual, amplifying the intended effect. In meditation, visualizing specific colors allowed the initiate to attune to energies and archetypal forces, facilitating transformation and insight. Even subtle variations in color had meaning. Deep blue indicated higher spiritual insight, while lighter shades suggested emotional openness. Crimson was linked to active energy, whereas vermilion suggested both passion and creative power. The Golden Dawn taught that mastery over color symbolism enabled practitioners to manipulate the vibrational qualities of their environment and their consciousness. For modern seekers, color remains a powerful tool. Visualization exercises, ritual use, and awareness of the energetic qualities of colors can enhance meditation, magical practice, and personal development. In the Golden Dawn, color was a bridge between the visible and invisible, a way to align human perception with the subtle forces that shape the universe. Ultimately, color symbolism was part of a larger philosophy that every aspect of ritual, from tools to gestures to visualizations, was a reflection of cosmic order, and that understanding and aligning with these patterns allowed the initiate to participate consciously in the workings of the universe.
Central to the Golden Dawn's teachings was the Kabbalah, a mystical framework that maps the structure of the universe, the soul, and spiritual ascent. At its heart lies the Tree of Life, a symbolic diagram of 10 sephiroth, or spheres, interconnected by 22 paths. Each sephira represents an aspect of divine manifestation, human consciousness, and spiritual principles. The Tree of Life serves as both a map and a guide. Initiates study its structure to understand the flow of energy, the stages of personal development, and the correspondences between the material and spiritual worlds. The paths, linked to letters of the Hebrew alphabet, tarot cards, and planetary forces,
provide a symbolic journey for consciousness to ascend from the mundane to the divine. The Golden Dawn emphasized the Tree of Life as a practical tool. Meditative exercises, visualizations, and rituals allowed initiates to traverse the Sephiroth consciously, integrating their energies and aligning themselves with universal principles. Each grade in the order corresponded to specific Sephiroth or paths, providing structured progress through symbolic and spiritual lessons. The Kabbalah also served as a universal language for the order, uniting elements of astrology, alchemy, numerology, and magic. By understanding the correspondences encoded within the Tree of Life, initiates could perform rituals with precision, interpret symbolic visions, and comprehend the hidden patterns of reality. For modern seekers, the Tree of Life remains a cornerstone of esoteric study. It is both a map of the cosmos and a mirror of the self, illustrating the interplay between the physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual aspects of existence. In the Golden Dawn, mastery of the Kabbalah was not merely academic. It was a pathway to transformation, guiding the practitioner toward wisdom, balance, and union with the divine.
Tarot was more than a divination tool in the Golden Dawn. It was a symbolic language that mirrored the structure of the universe, human consciousness, and the path of spiritual development. The order integrated the tarot deeply into its magical and meditative practices, linking each card to the Kabbalah, astrology, and elemental correspondences. The major arcana represented the 22 paths of the Tree of Life, with each card embodying an archetypal principle, spiritual lesson, or cosmic force. The Fool, for example, symbolized the beginning of the journey, innocence, and potential, while the World represented completion, mastery, and cosmic integration. By meditating on these cards, initiates could internalize their lessons and align with the energies they represented. The minor arcana corresponded to the 4 elements: wands for fire, cups for water, swords for air, and pentacles for earth, and explored the nuances of human experience, emotion, and action. By studying these cards, practitioners gained insight into both inner dynamics and external circumstances, learning to harmonize intention and perception. The Golden Dawn developed a system in which tarot readings were not mere fortune-telling, but structured exercises in meditation, visualization, and spiritual insight. Each card became a tool for understanding oneself, interacting with archetypal energies, and guiding magical work. Rituals often included the tarot, reinforcing correspondences, invoking planetary or elemental forces, and enhancing the symbolic power of the ceremony. For modern seekers, tarot remains a powerful bridge between conscious awareness and the archetypal forces that shape life. In the Golden Dawn, mastery of the tarot was a step toward mastering the self and the universe, a practical and symbolic system that translated complex cosmic principles into tools for meditation, magic, and personal transformation.
Astrology was a fundamental part of the Golden Dawn's magical system, serving as both a map of cosmic forces and a guide for timing, correspondences, and spiritual alignment. The order viewed the planets, zodiac signs, and celestial cycles not merely as influences, but as reflections of deeper spiritual realities. Each planet was associated with specific energies, qualities, and divine archetypes. For example, the sun represented will, vitality, and enlightenment. The moon symbolized intuition, reflection, and the subconscious. Mars embodied energy, courage, and transformation. Zodiac signs further refined these attributes, creating a detailed symbolic framework for understanding personality, destiny, and cosmic cycles. Astrology in the Golden Dawn was applied in multiple ways. Rituals could be timed to coincide with planetary hours, lunar phases, or astrological alignments, enhancing their efficacy. Talismans, meditations, and invocations were also crafted according to astrological correspondences, linking the practitioner's intention with universal patterns. The integration of astrology extended to the Tree of Life and Tarot. Each path, sephira, and tarot card had astrological correspondences, creating a unified system in which the heavens, symbols, and inner consciousness worked together. This multidimensional approach allowed initiates to navigate both the visible and invisible realms with precision and insight. For modern practitioners, astrology offers a lens for understanding cycles of personal growth, spiritual timing, and cosmic influence. In the Golden Dawn, it was not a tool for prediction alone, but a framework for aligning human action with the rhythms of the universe, enhancing magical work, meditation, and self-transformation. Ultimately, astrology was more than observation. It was a language of correspondence, a map of unseen forces, and a practical tool for harmonizing human consciousness with the greater cosmos, a cornerstone of the Golden Dawn's approach to ceremonial magic.
Alchemy in the Golden Dawn was not simply about turning base metals into gold. It was a symbolic and practical system for inner transformation, a spiritual science aimed at refining consciousness, purifying the soul, and achieving higher states of being. The alchemical process, calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation, was mirrored in the initiate's spiritual journey. Each stage represented a psychological and energetic process, breaking down ego, dissolving illusions, separating true knowledge from false perception, and ultimately integrating the purified self into a higher unity. Symbols like the Philosopher's Stone, the alchemical vessels, and the four elements were deeply woven into Golden Dawn rituals. Meditations, visualizations, and ceremonies often reflected these processes, guiding initiates to experience transformation both internally and symbolically. Alchemy was also linked to the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. Each sephira could be seen as a stage of refinement, with the practitioner moving from the material to the spiritual, integrating wisdom, will, and compassion along the way. In this sense, alchemy was the bridge between the physical and the metaphysical, the mundane and the divine. For modern seekers, the alchemical principles of the Golden Dawn offer a roadmap for personal growth. By observing patterns within the self, engaging in meditative and ritual practice, and consciously transforming impulses and habits, one can emulate the symbolic alchemy of the order. Spiritual gold, in this context, is not wealth, but wisdom, clarity, and mastery over one's own nature. In the Golden Dawn, alchemy was both metaphor and method, a system for turning the raw material of the human psyche into enlightened consciousness, uniting knowledge, discipline, and spiritual insight into the art of transformation.
No history of the Golden Dawn is complete without addressing Aleister Crowley, one of its most infamous and controversial members. Crowley joined the order in the late 19th century and quickly rose through the ranks, demonstrating remarkable magical skill, but also sparking conflict that would contribute to the order's fragmentation. Crowley's brilliance was undeniable. He possessed a deep understanding of ritual, Kabbalah, and ceremonial magic, and he brought innovative ideas to the Golden Dawn. However, his personality, charismatic, provocative, and often confrontational, clashed with other members, particularly the leadership of Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers. The controversies surrounding Crowley centered on multiple issues. He challenged the authority of Mathers, published secret rituals without permission,
and engaged in behaviors that were considered scandalous by his contemporaries. These actions not only created internal strife, but also brought public attention to the secretive order, threatening its reputation. Crowley's writings and magical experiments were revolutionary, but they were often misunderstood or sensationalized. While some viewed him as a visionary, others saw him as a disruptive force, exaggerating the mystical and ethical tensions within the Golden Dawn. His actions highlighted the challenges of combining powerful personalities, spiritual ambition, and secrecy within a single esoteric organization. Despite the controversies, Crowley's influence on Western occultism is undeniable. Many of his later teachings, including Thelema, were directly shaped by Golden Dawn practices, demonstrating both the order's foundational impact and the complex legacy of its most controversial member. In examining Crowley and the Golden Dawn, we see the tension between mastery and ego, innovation and tradition. It is a reminder that the pursuit of hidden knowledge is intertwined with human complexity, and that even in conflict, the Order's teachings continued to resonate through history.
Following internal conflicts, controversies, and the challenges posed by personalities like Aleister Crowley, traditional Golden Dawn lodges began to decline. What had once been a thriving esoteric society faced fragmentation, disputes over authority, and dwindling membership. Financial difficulties and the demands of maintaining secret rituals and ceremonial spaces added to the strain. Many lodges struggled to sustain themselves, relying on dedicated but often overextended members to keep the organization operational. Public scandals and sensationalized reports further undermined their credibility, discouraging potential new initiates. The Order's rigid structure, once a source of strength, became a source of friction. Disagreements over the interpretation of rituals, grading, and the role of the secret chiefs created rival factions. Some groups attempted to preserve the original teachings faithfully, while others adapted, modified, or even sensationalized rituals to suit their own needs. By the early 20th century, the Golden Dawn's influence was increasingly indirect. While many lodges continued to operate, they often functioned as small, isolated enclaves rather than a unified organization. The fragmentation allowed the teachings to spread in new directions, influencing other occult societies, literary figures, and magical practitioners worldwide. Despite decline, the lodge's legacy persisted. Their structured approach to ceremonial magic, symbolic systems, and mystical philosophy became foundational for modern Western esotericism. Even in diminished form, the lodges had created a blueprint for disciplined magical practice, study, and spiritual development that continues to inspire seekers today. The decline of traditional lodges illustrates the delicate balance between human dynamics and esoteric aspiration. While organizational structures may falter, the wisdom and practices they preserved endure, influencing generations far beyond the original members.
Even after the decline of its original lodges, the Golden Dawn's influence remains remarkably strong in contemporary occultism. Its teachings, rituals, and symbolic systems have been preserved, adapted, and expanded by modern practitioners around the world. Many contemporary magical orders trace their lineage directly or indirectly to the Golden Dawn. Ritual practices such as the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram, high ceremonial magic, and meditative techniques are widely studied and performed. Symbols, correspondences, and Kabbalistic frameworks remain central to many esoteric schools, demonstrating the enduring practical value of Golden Dawn methodology. Modern practitioners often adapt the teachings to suit individual needs, contemporary ethics, or specific spiritual goals. While some maintain strict adherence to traditional rituals, others integrate the Golden Dawn's principles with meditation, yoga, energy work, or personal spiritual systems. This flexibility has allowed the order's legacy to evolve, remaining relevant in a changing world. The Golden Dawn's focus on discipline, study, and self-transformation continues to resonate. Practitioners today emphasize ethical responsibility, spiritual growth, and the conscious use of symbolic and magical systems, values central to the original order. The structured approach to initiation, meditation, and ritual provides a pathway for personal development, even outside formal lodges. In essence, contemporary occultism reflects the Golden Dawn's foundational principles: that magic is both a science and an art, that symbols and rituals connect the practitioner to higher realities, and that disciplined practice leads to profound inner transformation. The Order's teachings live on, inspiring seekers, students, and magical orders around the world to explore the mysteries of consciousness and the unseen universe.
While many of the Golden Dawn's rituals and teachings have been published or studied extensively, numerous hidden teachings and lesser-known texts remain enigmatic. These materials often contain advanced rituals, symbolic interpretations, and meditative exercises reserved for higher-grade initiates. Some manuscripts were deliberately cryptic, encoded with ciphers or written in symbolic language to ensure that only the disciplined and prepared could comprehend them. Others were orally transmitted, creating an inner circle of knowledge that was never meant for general publication. This secrecy reinforced both the ethical and mystical rigor of the order. Among the lesser-known texts are advanced meditations, astral travel exercises, and correspondences linking tarot, Kabbalah, astrology, and alchemy in intricate, multi-layered systems. Some of these writings hint at profound metaphysical principles and cosmic laws, offering initiates tools for self-transformation and spiritual attainment beyond what is described in public documents. The Golden Dawn also emphasized the importance of personal insight. Hidden teachings were not merely instructions, they were invitations for initiates to discover meaning through disciplined study, ritual practice, and meditation. This approach ensured that knowledge was internalized, experienced, and integrated, rather than merely memorized. Today, researchers and occult practitioners continue to explore these texts, seeking deeper understanding of the order's philosophy, magical methods, and mystical insights. The hidden teachings remain a testament to the Golden Dawn's sophistication, offering pathways to spiritual discovery that are as relevant now as they were over a century ago. Ultimately, these lesser-known materials remind us that the Golden Dawn was more than an esoteric society. It was a living system of knowledge designed to cultivate wisdom, mastery, and a direct relationship with the hidden forces of the universe.
The Golden Dawn, though fragmented and often shrouded in mystery, has left an indelible mark on Western esotericism, ceremonial magic, and spiritual practice. Its structured system of initiation, ritual, and symbolism has influenced generations of magicians, scholars, and seekers around the world. The order's integration of Kabbalah, tarot, astrology, alchemy, and Egyptian mysticism created a cohesive framework for understanding the universe and the self. This framework continues to inspire modern magical systems, spiritual orders, and even popular representations of occult knowledge in literature, film, and art.
Perhaps the greatest legacy of the Golden Dawn is its emphasis on personal transformation. The order taught that true magic requires discipline, ethical awareness, and self-knowledge. Initiates were not merely learning rituals, they were training to understand themselves, their place in the cosmos, and the hidden laws that govern reality. Even today, the Golden Dawn's teachings are alive. Rituals like the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram are widely practiced. The Tree of Life and Tarot remain central tools for meditation and self-discovery. Its symbols, correspondences, and meditative techniques continue to guide seekers on paths of inner development and spiritual awakening. In many ways, the Golden Dawn is more than a historical society. It is a living tradition. Its legacy demonstrates that knowledge, when combined with disciplined practice, ethical awareness, and self-knowledge, can transcend time. The Order's wisdom continues to illuminate the journey of those who seek the hidden truths of the universe, proving that even secret knowledge can have a lasting, transformative impact on humanity. The story of the Golden Dawn reminds us that the pursuit of hidden wisdom is a timeless endeavor, one that requires courage, discipline, and an open heart. Its light, though veiled by history, continues to shine for all who are willing to follow its path. 5. Ritual remain central tools for meditation continue to guide and spiritual. In many ways, more than a historical society, it is a living tradition. Knowledge, when combined with awareness and transcend time. Wisdom continues to illuminate the journey of those who seek the hidden truth, proving that even reminds us that wisdom is a time, one that requires courage. Its light, though veiled, are willing to follow its path. Remains central. Continue to